Welcome to the channel. I hope that you are having an amazing day today. So we're going to be going over a quick tutorial, just kind of giving you guys something to start off or jumpstart your journey into React. So think of this as a small simplified crash course into React, and we will be creating a simple weather app. And let me go over here, and what we can do is just simply type in a city that we want to find the weather for. So let's just type in Atlanta, and then we can get the weather of Atlanta. And unfortunately, it's thundering in Atlanta. So what we're going to do here is exit all of this out, and we will go over this small app. And it will teach you a couple things like useEffect. We'll go over useState. We'll also go over props, and we'll explain along the way. All right. And this is a great way to get you started in React. So sit back and relax, and let's start our coding now. So what we're going to do now is create a empty folder and just go to new folder. Right here, I'm gonna slide it up, and this css.txt will be provided for you in the description, and all you have to do is go to the YouTube description, copy and paste this into the CSS file, but more on that later. What we're gonna do now is name this, and you wanna make sure this is a URL friendly name. So I'm gonna name it React-weather-app like this. You want to put those dashes because that's how it would look in like a URL, and make sure it's lowercase all the way through. You want to open with code. All right. If you don't see this, I know on Windows 11, it should be like at the bottom, it'll say more options, and then click more options, and then you'll see open with code. But go to open with code like this, or just simply go to VS Code and open the file up that way. But from here, what we're going to do is go to terminal, new terminal. And this is how you get started with creating a React app. So you want to type it down below inside of the terminal. You want to type in npx create-react-app // that'll create it right there. And all you have to do now is just wait for it to load. It will create the files and the structure that we need in order to begin using React. I will see you guys in a second once this is done loading. It should not take that long. All right, that took about a minute for me, and it may vary for you just based on your internet connection and how fast it is. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and continue with creating our React app. So the next thing that you want to do is simply start your React app. We won't be using any dependencies in this tutorial because I want to just show you the bare bones of React. So what we're going to do is just type in npm and start like this, and this will go ahead and start up the app. And the first thing that we should see is a spinning React logo, and that will let us know that we have React up and running. And right here, you should see your browser of choice, whatever your main browser is. It should pop up on the right side or cover the full screen, one or the other. And so here we go. We have the React app up, just so you guys can see a full screen picture of this. And this is what it looks like. So perfect. Now that we have the React app up and running, what we're going to do is start to determine what we need to keep and what we need to delete. React is great, but the thing about it is it does kind of give you some Flutter stuff that you don't necessarily need. And we can spend a long time talking about that, but I'm going to go ahead and just show you guys exactly what I do and how I start off my projects. And so right here inside of the public folder, we're just going to talk about a few things. You don't need any of this except for the index.html. You need to keep this. If you look at this HTML, it looks really kind of just plain, but there's a lot of different things in here. And so the main thing that you need to know is that you have this div with the ID of root. Now this root is tied to your React app. If you delete this, you will no longer have a React app. This title, of course, is what you see at the top of your tabs and so on and so forth. But we well, while we're here, let's go ahead and change this, and we can just name it weather app. And so that's one thing. And another thing I want to tell you guys, I want to give you a quick little thing, and a lot of people don't talk about in the React tutorials, is this favicon.ico. Now I won't be changing this in this tutorial, but one thing that you can do is add your favicon, just name it favicon.ico and delete this file, and then you will quickly have a favicon. And for you guys that don't know what a favicon is, it's simply just this little image right here at the top of the tab. All right. And so you see weather app is already changed from our public folder. Okay. And so I'm not going to touch any of these, but if you wanted to delete the logo, the manifest, and the robots.txt, you can delete all of this. I will say if you delete the manifest.json, you will also have to delete the manifest link right here. You will have to delete that as well because it will pop up as an error, but it won't stop your application. But that's just something that you want to keep in mind. But with that being said, let's go ahead and go to the source folder. This is where all of the magic happens. This is the folder that makes the engine run. So from here, there's a couple different things you want to know. Inside of the index.js is the #1 most important file, and the app.js is the second most important file. The index contains the app right here. It contains this. This is the app. And we'll talk more about how all these things are related in a few seconds. But what I want to do is simplify this React app for you. All right. The first thing that you need to do is delete the app.css. You don't need that. And all of this is just tied to that spinning logo that you just saw a few minutes ago. But you can delete the app.css. The app.js, keep it. The app.test.js, delete it as well. Next, you want to keep the index.css and the index.js, delete the logo.svg and the report and setup test. So delete this web vital stuff. You don't need that either. You don't need that. So we're going to simplify everything here. So you have app.js, and you could have kept the app.css if you want to, but I like to put all my CSS inside of the index.css. And there are different things you can use like SCSS and all that other stuff. But for right now, we're just going to keep it as simple as possible so you can get started with React. But anyways, let's continue. So what we got to do now, as you see, we have some errors down here, and that is because of these imports right here. And so this right here, imports, are things that are in React or within your application that you put inside of your app. So these were imported, and what we can do is just simply delete these. Let me go back to the terminal. So delete this web vitals because we deleted that. Delete the import of the web vitals. And then right here, you want to go to your app.js. And as you can see, we have that logo and that app.css. You want to delete that as well. And then backspace. Okay. The next thing that you want to do is go ahead and delete all of this that's inside of this return. So just delete all of this. Delete that div as well. And so inside of here, what we're going to do for now is just type h1 here. So we're going to type h1 like this, and then you're going to say hi. And so with that being said, what we're going to do is go back to our weather app, and you can see it says hi. Now, you notice we typed h1 and hi. This should look very familiar to you. This is basically HTML inside of JavaScript. And this is what we call our JSX. Now, JSX is exactly like this HTML here. So if I go inside of here, you can see that all this HTML, and you see it has body. And here we go. This one, look for this div. You can basically type this just like this, like, for example, like something like that. You could type that in here and it would, you can't type that exact line in there, but I'm saying you can type code just like that. So let's do one more thing here. We could wrap this inside of a div like this, and then we can paste that in here. All right. And it still says hi. But did you see that error? If you look here, it throws an error, and that is because you must make sure that you wrap all of your code together. Okay, so you have to put a div or a JS fragment, but more on JS fragments a little bit later in the tutorial. Okay, so with that being said, what we're going to do next is simply begin working on this app. All right, and so the first thing that I want to do here is format and basically put all of this together that we have. And when I say that, I want to go ahead and put our styles in, our CSS and all of that. So the first thing that we're going to do is go over to the index.css, and we're going to copy and paste that CSS inside of here. So just delete this code, and then take the CSS, go to the YouTube description, and then you want to get all that code out of there. and then you want to just paste it in here. Okay. So once you do that, we can bring back up the app, and you can see that it's already a little bit changed from how it was a few minutes ago. The background has changed, and so good, it's working. All right, the next thing we're going to do is go to our app.js, and what we're going to do is work on some JSX, some simple JSX. So right here, what we're going to do is have a div. I know we had one, but I just want to delete that so we can kind of start over. And we're going to have a class name. Now, I know in HTML, class looks a little bit different. You may know that class kind of looks like this, but that's not how we do classes in JSX. It's class name like this. And you will notice this pattern as you familiarize yourself with more React. Okay. And so here we're going to say class name container, because that's the class name that we have inside of our index here. And so we're going to have our container here. The next thing that we're going to do is have an h1. Now this h1, one great thing about React is that I can just type h1. It's going to give me that h1 here, and we're going to type weather app like that. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is talk about components. Now, components are very important because they will simplify your React project a lot. And a component can be made up of anything. It can be one line of code. It can be multiple lines of code. And so this app.js is basically a component. And if you look at it, it is sending this app right here with this export default app. It's basically sending that here where we have this app. And this app is basically a component that is inside of the index.js. Now, I did not really go over this root.render. Just know that this is how everything is sending itself to the HTML to be put inside of the DOM. I don't want to go over that and just spend a long time talking about it. But while you're looking at this, just know const root, this document that get element by ID is sending it to that root class that we saw earlier. Okay, but now back to components. Now components, like I said, are important, and we're going to create our first one. But what I want to do first is create a file, well, a folder to store our components. We'll have two in this project. So right inside of the source folder, what we're going to do is create a file, and this file will be called components like this. All right, components. Okay, and so if you're wondering how my files are being like changed and stuff like this, I do have an extension. If you want that extension, you can go here and download the extension. I have material icons, and they just generate these icons as I put files and stuff together, just in case you were wondering why mine may look a little bit different from yours. But anyways, let's get back to it. So right here, what we're going to do is go inside of that component. We're going to add a file, and this file will be the search bar. So we're going to add search bar .js, and so you can say JS or you can say JSX. Sometimes I like to use JSX, sometimes I like to use JS, but there is literally no difference. All you see is a difference in that file icon right there. That's all. Okay. And so from here, what we're going to do is use the same structure that is inside of this app. But you can do it two different ways, and I'm gonna show you both ways. Okay, so the first way you can do this, like I said, is just a function. All right, and all of your components will basically be made up of a function, and you can say function. After you say function, what you want to do is name that function. So it's search bar, and I usually like to use the same name that is my file name. All right, that's just a good practice to have. And so we're gonna call this search bar like this, and then you're gonna call it here like that. I always say call it when I use two brackets like this. But anyways, you're going to say search bar. And then from here, you're going to have curly braces. And then you're going to have a return. And inside of the return, that's where the JSX will go. And you can have a div like this. And let's just say inside this div, we want to have the search bar like this. All right. That's one way you can do it. Or another way you can do it is basically call an arrow function. You can say const search bar equals like this, have a arrow function like that, and then you could simply have your return inside of here, and then you could do the exact same thing that we just did. All right, so I'm just kind of giving you those options, just depend on what you like to do. But for the purpose of this tutorial, what we're going to be doing is using the function way like that. All right. So from here, what we're going to do is go ahead and go back to our app. And now we're going to import our first function. So what you want to do is say import. And you're going to just say import search bar, the name of that file, search bar from. And what I like to do, you want to have your quotes here, dot slash, and from here you can go to source like this, slash again, or / components / search bar. All right. And so now how do you think we're going to put this inside of our file? What we're going to do is just simply say the same thing that was taught to us already. Just like it says app here with a closing tag, that closing tag. All we have to do is do the same thing inside of our app. All right, so below this, what I'm going to do is just simply say search bar like this, close the tag off. Now, when I do that, it says search bar is not found. Ha, perfect. I'm glad it said that. The reason why it says this is because we did not put the export default. All right, let's go back to search bar and we're going to export default and then say search bar like that. Perfect. Search. Now you see search bar has appeared inside of our application. All right. And so we can start editing this search bar and everything we do inside of here, inside of the search bar component will show up inside of the main app. Now, I will say this, and this is a key point to know, that a lot of people structure their React apps differently. That's the thing that a lot of people love or hate about React. There's no file structure that you necessarily have to follow. You just kind of have to go along and come up with your own structure. There are a lot of different people and a lot of different online structures that some people follow. And so that includes having a folder and going inside and adding a component folder like we did here with a search bar. Some people like to do that. Some people don't. In terms of having files like this, but depending on how big your project is, you're probably going to want to at least at minimum have a component folder. But some people like to do the same thing for the images and then for the homepage stuff, and some people get crazy with it. You do it however you like, whatever you want to do. I do have other tutorials on my channel and you can kind of see the process that I go through. Check those out if you have time, but let's continue with this project right here. Okay. So the first thing, like I said, that we want to do is build out this search bar right here. Okay. And so what we're going to do first is take this div away. And because I want to show you guys what you can do if you find yourself not wanting to do multiple divs, because I see a lot of times people do this, people do that, and the divs kind of get ridiculous. All right. It gets ridiculous. What you can do is add what we call a JS fragment. All right. And so now it's giving us a way to close off everything. And so what we're going to do inside of here is put our input. Okay. And input is a self-closing tag automatically. And so now we have our input over here. So what we can do now is on this input, we want to add a class name, and this class name will be search-bar. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is add a type. This type will be search. And then we'll also add a placeholder. This placeholder will be search cities, ... like that. Okay. So that's what we have, search cities. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is add a few things that I love about React. So we need to have a on key down and an on change on this input. So what we're going to do first is say on key down, and we're going to leave it blank for now. I'm just going to put a empty array in here, or empty string. And the next thing I'm going to do is have an on change. All right. And so on key down, we need to create a function that will allow us to know what happens when we hit a key down. And specifically, we want to know when we hit enter. And on change will be used to keep up with what we're typing inside of here. Now I hit something and I can't really type in that input because we don't have these defined yet. So we do need to create some functions here in order to get this search bar active. But for right now, what we're going to do is go back to our app.js. And so inside of the app.js, we need to add the weather display. Okay. And so with that being said, what we're going to do is come here and type weather display. I just want to show you guys something else. So you see, we can just type inside of this JSX and it works perfectly fine, but that is not necessarily good practice. Okay. What we want to do is add another component. So we're going to go to our components. We're going to add a file, and this file will be called our weather display. Okay. .jsx. Okay. Inside of the weather display, what we want to do is do the same thing. And so you can kind of pause if you want to try to quiz yourself, but I'm going to go ahead and work with it. So I'm going to type function weather display, call it there. Then we're going to add our curly brackets, add our return, and more brackets here. And then what we're going to do from here is add a div like this. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and go down, add our export default weather display. And the reason I'm doing that already is because I don't want to forget like I did last time. It's key that you don't forget to put that. But React has a great way of letting you know when you forget things. All right, so don't worry, React will let you know. So inside of this div, what we're going to do is add our class name. And class name will be called content. And then on the H3 right here, on the H3, like you knew that. But anyways, we're going to add an H3 here. And so right here, what we're going to do is just say city. Now we will be changing this content in a little bit, but for right now, we're going to just get the structure, and then we're going to use an API to generate our weather. But anyways, let's continue. So the next thing we're going to do is add a div. Now this div will have a class name, and this class name will be image. So let's just say image here. And so after that, what we're going to do is add a IMG. Now, IMG, if you hit IMG, you see it's self-closing. And for the source, we're just going to leave it blank for now. And in the alt, what we're going to do is say weather icon. So this will be the icon that displays once the weather is showing up. So after this div, what we want to do is have an H2, hit enter. And then this will be where we put the degrees at. Right now, I'm just going to type degree right there. And then after that, we're going to have a paragraph or just P. And right here, what we're going to do is just type in cloudy. All right, we just type cloud. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to format the document here. And I am using Prettier. So if you want to download that, just go ahead and go into your extensions, type in Prettier. And right here, and you can install Prettier and you can format your code. All right. And so it's good to have a code formatter, because who want to go through and format code all day? Not me. So anyways, with that being said, now what do we have to do? We have to go back to the app.js and we have to import that weather display. Okay, so let's import the weather display. And my typing is not working with me today. So what we're going to do is import weather display. And you see the beauty of it. It already has it popping up. Just hit enter. And weather display is here. And now all we have to do is type weather display, close it off, and there you go. So now the weather display is here, city, the weather icon, the degree, and cloudy. Okay. So that is what we have so far. So everything is looking good. There is now the step 2 of this project that we need to go over. All right, so now we're gonna show you, or I say I'm gonna show you guys how to call an API in React, useState, useEffect, some of the most important things that you need to know when you are working inside of a React application. But before we do that, what we need to do is go to the website that we'll be getting the API from. OpenWeatherMap is a great place for weather APIs, and it is the main thing that we will use in this application to generate our weather. So what we're going to do is click on sign in, and then from sign in, we're going to go to create an account. If you don't have an account, I already have an account. So I'm just going to log in. The information that you're going to put in here is very simple. You basically just need an email address and you need your password. That's all you need, and then you can create your account. So let me go ahead and log in. So if you just logged in, or if you just create your account, this is the first thing you should see, or you'll see like your email address up here or something like that. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is go over Next to for business, don't click for business, but right here on this drop down menu, click the drop down menu and hit my API keys. Once you go to my API keys, you'll see this key right here. And you usually don't want to share your API keys, but this is a tutorial and it's fine. It is what it is for me, but for you, it'll be a little bit different. You don't want to share your API keys, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is save that API key. So I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to take this key right here. I'm going to copy it. Okay, and inside of app, what I want to do is just store it. Now, there are ways that you can save an API key in React. We're not really going to go over those, but for what the purpose of this tutorial is just because it's a small application. What I want to do is simply create something called API key. I'm going to say const API key and then equal. I'm going to have a string here with that API key in it, just so we can store that API key right here. And like I said, this is not what you want to do. Typically, you want to have this inside of maybe a .env file. And for big scale projects, you're going to want to encrypt this, but that's not the scale of this project, okay? This is just simply to keep this key right here. So that's what we're going to do. All right. Next, what we want to do is right here, let's go back and we're going to go to guide here. We're going to go to guide and you want to scroll down and you want to go to learn more. Once you click on learn more, you want to click on API doc. All right, and so now we are inside of the documentation for OpenWeather. Okay, and so you want to keep this page in mind, keep it open, because we're going to need this, and we're also going to need the geocoder. Okay, and so what we can do is just go ahead, take this, copy this. All right, we're going to go back to VS Code for a second, and what I want to do at the top of this, I'm going to simply paste it. Okay, but I want to comment that out. So I'm going to highlight it, hit Control KC, and I'm going to store it right here for now. We'll need that a little bit later, but I'm going to comment it out so we can go to it later, because we also need to scroll down and go to the geocoder API right here. And we need the geocode API, which is this right here. We need this. So we need the direct version right here, and take that, do the same thing that we just did, because we'll need it later, and paste it here, and then just simply comment it out. We will use those here in a few in order to get this app up and running. Okay, so the next thing we can do is just go back to our app. And so now we can go ahead and start working with useEffect and useState. So what we're going to do, and what I like to do, is have like my stuff that's imported from React. I like to have it at the top. So I'm going to import useState and useEffect. Now useState and useEffect come directly from the React app. This is not a dependency. Once you create your React app, you already have access to these. Okay. And so we're going to have curly braces like this. We're going to type in useState, and we're going to type in useEffect. All right. And the reason we can do this is because both of these are going to come from the same thing. All right. So you can destructure that because they come from the same thing. You can do it individually and take the brackets off, but it's a lot cleaner to do it this way. Okay. And next thing we're going to do inside of this app, we're going to now start defining some things. So I'm going to go under API key right here. And I'm going to change this to capital K. And no, I kind of like lowercase k. Anyways, that didn't really matter. But anyways, we're going to define some things and start working with useState. So the way useState is set up, you're going to need two things. You're going to need the item that you're defining. So right now, let's go with city. And then you're going to need what I call a function to call and change whatever it is. So set city. Once we call set city, it's going to change the value of the city. Okay, think of it that way. And so the way that we activate this is say useState. And so inside of useState, what we're going to do is do what I always say. We're going to call there, and then we're going to put a empty string inside of here. Okay. And so what I want to do though is put just a placeholder string. We're going to say New York. New York will be just kind of our placeholder. You can't leave it empty, but in order to avoid errors for right now, we're going to just say New York. Okay, what you really would want to do in a real world application is have the set city to be your current city wherever you are from, and the way you can do that is use geolocation, and that may be something I do later on in a tutorial. If y'all are interested, let me know down below in the description, but for right now we're just going to say New York. And next thing we're going to do is say const, and we need the latitude and the longitude, so we're going to say const lat, and we're going to say set lat like this, and we're going to use the same thing. We're going to say use state, and right here we're going to say 40.730610. okay, and so these are just some things that I've got off the internet, by the way, just throwing it out there. I'm just gonna copy and paste and then go and change these. So right here, now we're gonna say LON, and then we're gonna set the LON, and then we're going to go to use state. Inside of here, now we're gonna say negative 73 dot 93524242. All right, and so that will set us up somewhere in New York. I just Googled it and got a random geolocation from New York. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is say const info, and we'll say info, and then we're gonna say set info. Now this info is gonna be coming from our API, and we need these in order to get the information. All right, and so I said need these. These values will be generated from this information, but more on that a little bit later. Okay, we're gonna say use state. Here we're just gonna put an empty array in there. Yeah, empty array. So now that we have used state a few times, these values are now associated to city. So the city is New York, the lat is 40, the longitude is 73. Okay, the information is blank. So what we want to do now is use effect. And the way you set up use effect is you just say use effect, call it there, and what I do 2 brackets automatically, because it's kind of like an arrow function, and then you want to have your curly brackets, and then I immediately go after the bracket, comma, and put an array here, and this is your dependency array. The reason we need use effect is because whatever is inside this dependency array, the will make use effect run. So if you have an API, for example, you don't want your API running over and over and over again. You want your API to run for a specific reason. If it's blank like this, it's just going to simply run as soon as the page loads, and that's it. But we're going to have some dependencies inside of here, and the dependencies that will be inside of here are city, lat, LON, and the API key. Okay, so those are the dependencies that we need, and what we're going to do now is go ahead and call these APIs. Now you can just do a simple fetch, or you can do an async. Now we're going to do an async, so we're going to say const search and cities like this. So we're going to search cities equal to an async function, and we're going to call it async function here like that. All right, so now we want our response, so const response is going to be equal to await fetch like this. Okay, and I gotta put equal await fetch. Now this fetch right here, the first fetch will be our direct. So look at the top where you had that link here, and you want to copy it. So now we can delete that, and you're going to basically put a string, and let's have backticks. So have backticks, paste it in here. Okay, and so what I want to do is kind of make this big for a second. So backticks, paste that in here. The first thing that you need to do is right where it says London, eliminate that. So delete that part. You want a $, and you want curly brackets here. So this will be our city. Okay, this will be our city. And then where the API key is, just simply put a $, and bring the API key together, because we already have the API key defined up here. So the API key is there, city is there, and we're going to fetch that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is get the data from that. So const data equals await, and we're going to await that response.json, call it there. Okay, and then from that information, what are we going to get? We're going to get the lat and the longitude from this. So we're going to set it. So set lat, you want to call it, And so whenever you call one of these, so right here it says set lat, we're calling that, whatever you put inside of this is going to change the latitude. All right. And so we want to change it to data, the first string of that data. And one other thing to highlight, and I'm glad I thought about it. You see where it says limit? When you type in a city, it's going to give you multiple responses, but for this project, we only want one. Like I said, I may update this project later on to show you guys more information and how to have like a drop down search, for example, which I think will be great, but it all depends on how this one does and if you guys would actually want to see that from a weather app. But anyways, let's continue. So like I was explaining, you have the data here. So set lat is going to set the new lat, okay, and it's going to be set to the data, the first response of that data, question mark dot lat, and we're basically going to do the exact same thing for the longitude. So we're going to set the LON here like that, and it's going to be data question mark dot LON. Okay, and so once this search cities run, we have not called it yet, but once it runs, it's going to get that information. That data is going to be changed, or that data is going to be set, and we're going to set the lat and the longitude based on that data. Okay, so now that we have that data, what do we want to do? We want to take that data and fetch the weather. So we're going to say const fetch weather. Going to fetch the weather. It's going to be equal to a async function. The AC function will have a few more things in there. We're going to say const response, or res, equal to, or const, yeah, equal to, and await fetch. Now this time, I'm going to put the backticks in here. This time we're going to get that other link. I'm going to copy it. Go ahead and take away those. We're going to scroll down, and inside of here, we're going to paste. And as you can kind of see, it's all adding up. So you see here where it says lat equals, now lat equals lat. So all we have to do here is put a $, because we have the lat is here, and the same thing for the longitude. We're going to simply put a $. Now, it won't be that simple for every single API call, of course, but I just thought it was kind of easier to do it this way than other ways. So the next thing we could do is just put a $sign here and take that key, bring the space together. So now we already have this set up, okay? And so what we can do from here is say const data equals await, and now we're gonna just await the res.json, call it there, okay? Now we want to set the info, same thing that we did with the lat and the long. Right here, set info, and we're simply going to take all of that data and set the info. Perfect. But there's two things we need to do. As you can see, these are kind of shaded, and that's because we haven't called them yet. So let's just call them in order. So we're going to call search cities, and I like to just call these at the bottom, which you could just call it here, but I like to just call them at the bottom. Okay, we're going to search cities, and then we're going to fetch the weather. Okay, so there we go. We call both of those there. And now our useEffect is done. Okay. So now there's a few things that we haven't used yet, like info and set city, but don't worry, we will be using those in a few seconds. Okay. Because there are some things that we need to do. So if you look at our app, nothing has changed, right? Nothing has changed because we have these components here, and we need to get the information from the city and the information from the fetch weather. We need to put that information inside of these components. But how do we do that? That is where props come in. Okay, props are a great tool. Now you don't want to prop after prop after prop. And what I mean by that is have like search bar and then have another prop and another prop. There are things set inside of React that can manage that. But for a small application like this is fantastic. Props are fantastic. And you need to use them when you can use them for like maybe a prop, one prop deep, or maybe two. But once you start getting to 4, 5, 6 props deep, it gets a little shaky because you may have an error somewhere. And then you're going to have to try to find that error. And it is hard to manage, right? But with that being said, let's go ahead and use props. And so how do we do that? Let me go back out just so I can expand the page a little bit. What we're going to do is just type out here. So space, we're going to say set city like this. Okay. And so inside of set city, we can just say set city again. And what this is going to do is set city will be the prop and it will be equal to set city. So now we can call this set city function inside of search bar. Okay. And I'm gonna show you guys how to do that in a few seconds, but we do need something else inside the search bar, which is the city itself. All right, so city is city. Okay, so the city property will be city. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and go over to the search bar. Let me kind of exit out of some of these things at the top for a second. Okay, what we're gonna do is go here at the top, and there's a few ways that you could import this. You could simply just say set city like this, and you can say city. But there is something that comes with doing it this way. You are going to have to define each time that you want to say like city, you're going to have to say props.city. Who wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. All right, we don't want to do that because it's way too much typing. All right, we do enough typing anyway. So what you can do is just simply destructure this. This is how we do it now. Like they had to do that back then, but now we can just destructure it. All right. And so what we can do from here is hit right above the return. I want to actually use state. So I'm going to add a little bit of space here. I'm going to import useState real quick. And the reason for this is because we need useState to store some information for us. All right. What we're gonna do is store the search. Okay, so we're gonna say const, same way we did earlier, search set search. All right, and we're gonna say equals useState. Now we're gonna call this right here and put an empty array there. All right, and then what we're gonna do is finally create those functions that we did not create earlier. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is handle change. So const handle change. And we're going to say equal event, and you could just simply say E to be honest with you. And then we're going to say set search. All right, and we're going to change set search to e.target value. Okay, so now right here on the on change, now we can just type handle change right here. So on change is going to handle the change, and they're going to set the search to e.target.value, which is this property right here. Okay, so now we need to handle the key down. So let's define that. So const handle key down. All right, handle equals an event. All right, and inside of this event, you want to listen for the enter key. So the way that you do that is say if e.key triple equal signs enter. Now it's important that the enter is a capital E, by the way. Curly brackets here. We're going to set the city because we have set city because of this prop right here. So now we can use set city, even though set city is inside of the app right here. We can still use it because of the prop. Let's go back. So set city. What are we going to set city to? We're going to set it to the search. So whatever the person is searching up, whatever they type inside of this on change, and on change is basically listening for whatever is being typed inside of the input. Okay, and so whatever is being typed inside of that input is going to be search. Okay, and then right here we've got set city. We need to do something else. We need to say current target. So current target that value equals blank. And so the reason we need to do that, and the reason why is because if I'm typing inside of search, let's just type in anything and see add that function. Let me refresh the page, and we have an error here. That callback function that apply. It's not a function. Oh, sorry about that, guys. The error is right here. So we didn't on key down. We did not put handle key down. So let's handle key down, and that error should be fixed. So there we go. Perfect. So the reason why you need this clear right here is because if I type something, I hit enter, you see how it goes away. But if you take away this property, take away that, If you type something in, hit enter, it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so that's not how input's supposed to work. So here we go. Let's put it back, hit enter, and it goes away. Perfect. So everything is working according to plan. Okay. And so, to be honest with you, I don't think we need city, at least not in this application, but I did need it to just show you that proper example. So that's worked out fine. Go ahead and format this stuff and everything looks good so far. Okay. And so now whatever I type inside of this city is going to be stored inside of search. All right. And then the search is going to be set city. So now we can find the cities. Let's go back to our app. So back in our app, we have the set city working, and we can take away this prop, by the way. We have the set city working. So now we need to get the weather display working, because now we can type in the information and get all of this stuff working. So what we got to do is the same thing we did earlier, is set the info, and we're going to set the info to info. Okay, now we can go back to weather display, and inside of weather display we are going to do the same thing, destructure that info like this, so we can just use info directly. Okay, and so now inside of the return here, what we're going to do is simply take the stuff that's coming out of that info, and what we can do actually, just to show you guys what is going on, I'm gonna hit enter, and I'm just going to tab, I'm gonna do console.log info like this, and I'm going to go to let's actually go to inspect. Let's go to our console and go the way to display, and you see it says undefined. It looks like we have a few errors here, and so what I'm gonna do, let's refresh. So we're not getting any information here. And the reason for that is because I'm pretty sure I put set info, didn't I? Yep. So right here, it should not be set info. It should simply be info like this. All right, there we go. So let me full screen this for a second. Let me slide that over. So you can see the information that is being broadcasted here, and the info that is being shown is the info from the placeholder stuff that we did. So the placeholder stuff, I go back on my app right here, New York, and the lat and longitude and all that stuff is being generated from the New York. So this API call right here with the city of New York is calling that, and then we're getting the weather because we have the lat and longitude already defined in the useState up here. But if we would delete all this, then all this would be gone, but we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do is exit out of this, bring it back. Let's go back to our weather display. And so inside of our weather display, now we can actually start using that information. Okay, so in order to put that info here, what you got to do is have curly brackets here and say info like this dot name. All right, and so that's going to look into that search and give you the name. Now, if this was a prop, so let me take this away, and this used to be props like this, but it's info because of how we have it structured. If you go back, a lot of times it'll be like props equals info. Okay, but instead we got info equals info because we're going to destructure it. But let me go back and show you. So if we just had info right here, what you would have to do, and think about this as being props and not info, but for the purpose of this, I'm gonna just say info. You would have to literally say info dot name to actually make it work. Okay, but we are destructuring it, and that's why everybody do it this way now, because it's a lot simpler than saying props dot info. And I'm hoping that I'm not confusing you guys at all, but in some old React things, you may see props, and don't be afraid to see props. And now I gotta refresh, but don't be afraid to see props. That's what that is. It's just going through the layers to get to the information. Okay, all right, now that I explained that better than I did a few minutes ago, just use structure, guys. A lot simpler. But let's continue. What we're gonna do from here is have some conditionals. So we got info.name. We want to say question mark info.name, because what if we don't have that? We're going to say, or just say city, like that. So if we don't have info.name, it'll say city, but it's going to continue to say New York because we already defined it. But if we go back to the app and you take away New York, then it'll say city, but it's already predefined. All right. And so that's some error handling that you can use in future projects. And we're going to go through some more error handling right now. So another thing that we need to do is go down. We're going to do the image in a second because it's a long line. I'm going to show you guys how to get to it, but we're going to go to the H2. And H2, what we're going to do is have curly brackets. We're going to say info question mark dot main question mark dot temp question mark. Okay. And then we're going to say info dot main dot temp. Okay. Else we're going to say degree. Okay. So if we don't have this information, it'll say degree. And we're going to use that same logic for the next item here. So right here, I'm going to paste it and format, which I guess is already formatted. Let me backspace. That looks better to me. So next thing is info question mark dot, and we're going to change this to weather question mark dot 0, like this, inside of a bracket. And then we're going to say question mark dot description. Okay. All right. So here now we'll say question mark like that. And then what I like to do, I'm just going to simply copy, paste it again. And in the middle, you need a question mark right here. And then we can delete this part. And then say else. We're going to say, let's say cloudy, like this. Okay. And that's what it'll say if you don't have this, but we have all that. So good. So there are a few more things that we need to do. We need to add the Fahrenheit. We need to change this to 98, and we need to add the weather icon image. So what we're going to do is just go to Google and we're going to type in degree symbol. And here we're just going to take that degree symbol, copy it, and then just paste the degree symbol here. And we're going to keep everything in Fahrenheit. Just take it and put Fahrenheit right there. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is get the image source. So right here, just type OpenWeatherMap conditions. It's hard to find that on the page. You got to really search for that. But OpenWeatherMap conditions, click that. And then in the conditions, you'll see URL right here. So where it says URL is, take this URL, copy it. Okay. And then inside this URL, what you want to do is change this from those ticks and actually put curly brackets and then back ticks. Hit enter. Okay. And then let's see, backspace one time. Okay. Everything looks good. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like. And you just have to change the part that is going to come with the API. And the part that's going to come with the API is this part right here. So where it says IMG and it has a slash right there. What you want to do is put a $, curly bracket, and before that PNG, you want to put a curly bracket. So right here, .png. Okay. And so this little part right here is what you're going to take away. Take that part away and then put in info question mark dot weather question mark dot 0, but you want a curly bracket, I mean double bracket, not curly bracket, question mark dot icon, and then leave the .png right here. We can click it and see if it is a page not found. So we shouldn't get anything here, right? Okay. So apparently somewhere we did not put the right information, and the reason why we eliminated the W here. So W slash like that. There we go. Perfect. So this is what it should be. So don't forget the W slash, and there it is. Now we have the icon showing up. Perfect. So we have the icon showing up. We have the degree. Everything looks good so far. We just got to change this 298. That big number. It doesn't WeatherMap doesn't natively come in Fahrenheit. So we gotta go and change it in the API itself. So let's open that up. Let's go to app, and right here inside of the app, we can change it right here in this fetch right here. Okay, and so the way that you do that is right where you see the weather question mark right before the lat. What you want to do is type units. So units like that, units equal, and you want to say imperial. So IMPERIAL like that, and you want to say and. So if you do that, let's go back. There we go. Change it to Fahrenheit. All right. Everything looks good so far. Let me go to terminal. Let's go to new terminal. Actually, we need the old terminal where it says no, compile successfully. We don't have any errors here. This is how you can see if you have any errors or anything that's not being used, because it will let you know right here. But let's go ahead and type in Atlanta, hit enter, and look at that, it's overcast. All right, that is the weather app. But before you go, there is something that you should know, and just some kind words I do want to say, and I say kind words, some things to just think about. React is like a tree. When you're building out your applications and different things like that, it's important to know, like whatever you have in this app, all this stuff right here, the search bar and the return, and it's going to be sent to this index. This is where it's going to be sent to, this app right here. And so just know that it's kind of like a tree. Everything is being sent inside of this app and is being built out, and then the index right here is accepting all that information and putting it out to the DOM. Okay, but one more thing, let's go to terminal. Let's go to new terminal. In case you wanted to end this app and then put in some dependencies, what you want to do is say Control C like this. Well, actually I got to go to node. So right here, node, and say Control C like this. And it says terminate batch job, hit Y. And yes, and then that will end the app. So the app would no longer work. And then to start it back, just simply hit npm start. All right. So I hope that I was able to help put your dependencies in before you started back, by the way. But I hope I was able to teach you something about React, and I hope you learned something. If you want more tutorials, don't forget to subscribe. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next video.